And welcome to Press TV Spotlight. I'm Marzia Hashimi. Thanks so much for being with us. Well, perhaps the killing of over 45,700 Palestinians in 456 days just not been deadly enough for the United States. Otherwise, what would be the reason for the Biden administration asking Congress to approve another $8 billion package to give to the regime, which is committing genocide after giving it $20 billion in 2024? Is this due to the fact that Washington is a partner in crime with the Zionist regime and its onslaught against the Palestinians? And should the International Court of Justice not only hold the Israeli regime responsible, but also the regime in Washington? Well, stay with us as we take a look at this on the Spotlight. I'm going to cross over to Ramallah. I'd like to welcome our guest, Saad Nimr, Professor of Political Science, Birzeit University. Saad, thank you so much for being with us. In your perspective, why is it so important for the Biden administration to get this $8 billion package approved when he only has just over 2 weeks left to January 20th for a new administration, and he's already given the regime more than $20 billion in 2024?
Good evening to you, Mrs. Hashimi, and to all your viewers. Well, yes, this is the Biden administration is leaving within 2 weeks, but at the same time, there was never been any administration committed to help Israel as much as Biden administration. And in reality, especially in this last war during 23 and 24, and now we are entering 25 with this deal to give Israel another $8 billion. Well, apparently that the Israeli really do suffer of lack of ammunition in their stores, and especially after they enlarged their operations to include not only Lebanon but also Syria, bombing Syria in the last few weeks, and also bombing Yemen. So all that, they will be desperate need to have more ammunition, and this is on one hand. On the other hand, we are talking about the continuous also genocidal war in Gaza, which we are witnessing every day, the bombardment and the missiles and the bombs of the tanks and the artillery on a daily basis going on against Gaza, and especially lately. So that means that the Israeli really in desperate need for more supplies, and now it comes by Biden. And why Biden will do that in his last 15 days or so? I think he's also investing in the future to say that the Democrats are, were standing by Israel, and no one can blame him in the next elections, maybe for the Democrats to say that we were committed that much to Israel. And I think that also we have to bear in our mind that United States were also participating in this war. They are partner in this war against the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, and the Yemenis in all the ways. So definitely it's part of their commitment to Israel.
Okay, well, and cross over to St. Petersburg and welcome our next guest to the show, Isha Krishnaswamy, journalist and podcaster. Thanks so much for being with us. Isha, as the Zionist regime has been illegally striking several countries, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, of course, Palestine itself, I mean, is this a reward from Washington for the entity basically creating as much havoc as it could in the region?
Well, yes. And the entire purpose of the regime is to actually preserve Washington's hegemony within the region. And so it's more than a reward, but more like the Zionist entity carrying out Washington's agenda within the region, with destabilizing Syria and getting rid of the previously democratic government, which now with Jalani, who was given, who in 2017 the FBI actually offered a $20 million reward to find him because they thought he was a terrorist. So it's more of the Zionist entity carrying out Washington's agenda within the region in all ways.
All right, well, Saad, I mean, the New Deal will give Israel even more bombs and artillery for the regime to kill more kids and other civilians. Basically, is the U.S. just openly saying that it is a partner in this genocide?
Well, yes, they are, and that's quite clear because they know exactly what the Israelis are doing against Gaza, and especially against Gaza because they are before the stop of the war on Lebanon, they are targeting civilians. There is no more military targets or Hamas or Palestinian resistant targets in Gaza to have it in their target bank at all. What they are doing is only civilians, and they are trying to say that some leaders of Hamas are within the displaced people in the refugee camps and so on, which is, we know that it is absolutely stupid claims. But at the same time, they are the only thing they are doing is killing the children and the women and the innocent people. Now, from the American perspective, knowing that, and many times there were statements by the United States saying that we have to save the civilians, we have to take care of the civilians, but all that they do know, and there are so many reports all around saying that Israel is targeting civilians. And yet the United States are still providing Israel with weapons. It means that, they are participating and they are involved up to their ears in this war against the Palestinians. From the very beginning, the United States was partner in this war. It was not only by Israel, but was also by the United States.
Well, Isha, increasingly, Americans have been calling for an arms embargo against Israel, as well as a ceasefire. I mean, why does it seem that what many Americans want is of no significance to American officials? Do you see that changing at all, perhaps this year?
About 15 years ago, Princeton University did a study. It did a study showed that public opinion has a negative impact on public policy.
Okay, you want me to? I'll cross back. You want me to get?
That it doesn't really matter what the American people want, and on top of it, lobbyist groups like IPAC spend hundreds of millions of dollars getting congressional candidates that has very favorable Israeli policy elected. So with regards to Israel, regardless of the public backlash that the American government faces, there is a bigger fear of the lobbyist groups, so that it's very unlikely that public policy is going to have an impact. And with the new administration coming, President Trump has accepted money from Miriam Edelson, who is a big donor for Israeli causes. And he has basically offered annexation of the West Bank in exchange for the campaign contributions. So it's probably going to get only more belligerent towards Israel.
Well, Saad, northern Gaza has been under a crippling siege where no food nor supplies have been allowed in for months. And just this week, the regime has attacked another hospital, destroyed it, while also killing and capturing hospital staff. I mean, in the middle of all of this, more money and equipment is given to this regime by Washington. What does this mean? And what does it mean for so-called international law?
Well, yeah, when we are talking about north of Gaza, we know that there is a plan called the General's Plan in order to evacuate north of Gaza. And one of important facility for the people in Gaza is the hospitals. We have 3 hospitals in north of Gaza. Now, the 3 of them are out of service totally. And Kamal Adwan Hospital, the biggest one, it was destroyed totally and burned to the ground by the Israeli, and most of the staff, doctors, were arrested, plus some of the patients and their also relatives. We are talking about around 240 were arrested in this incident. That was all over the news, all over the world, and everyone knows, especially the head of this hospital, Dr. Hussam Abu Safiyyeh. He became, a person who's known to the media because of his statements, like on a daily basis, about what's going on in north of Gaza. And yet the Americans do know that, the international community do know that, and yet no one just spoke anything about it apart from a few organizations here and that. The American knows that, and yet they are still providing Israel with weapons. They know that they are breaking the international law, the human international law, and violating all kind of laws of war, and yet they are still providing them. It means one thing only, that the Americans do know, because they are participating in this war, as we mentioned, and they are encouraging Israel to continue and to go on with even these atrocities against civilians.
What are your thoughts, Isha? Do you feel that the U.S. and the U.K. and those who are supporting the Israeli regime has totally discredited themselves?
Well, the U.S. and U.K. like to preach that they stand for freedom and democracy in the world stage, but obviously that is not true. So obviously what they preach is not true, so in that way they have discredited themselves. But unfortunately, the way that the UN is set up, both of them have unilateral veto power in the UN Security Council, so it's unlikely that anything will be passed that is counter to Israel's interests within the UN. So that is the dilemma that the world faces, and in order to build a more multipolar world, everyone will have to figure out how to change the UN Security Council such that countries like US and UK don't have such unbalanced levels of power.
Right. Well, Saad, let's talk about another side of this, and that's attacking Yemen. And we've seen these attacks by the United States, by the UK, and others, including the Zionist regime. It's quite mind-boggling when one thinks that these entities are attacking the country that has taken a stance against the genocide. All the Yemenis say is just stop the genocide, and we will stop what we're doing. But instead of the regime in Washington stopping or pushing the Israeli regime to stop, it attacks Yemen. It's quite mind-boggling. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that it's the only three countries who took action against Israel and against the genocide war and took really a good action. It was Lebanon, Iraqis, and the Yemenis. Now, since the deal in Lebanon, now Hezbollah is out of the equation. Iraq now, after what happened in Syria, now they are also slowing down. It became only Yemen. And Yemen, from the very beginning, they were supporting the Palestinian people, and they put it quite bluntly. Stop the genocidal war on Gaza and end the siege of Gaza, and we will stop. So it's quite understood kind of an equation. But the Americans, the UK, who attacked Yemen, and now Israel is attacking Yemen, and they are planning to attack more and more. But they have difficulties in going against Yemen for many reasons. Geographically, it's very difficult, and also lack of information on Yemen, and that will make it very hard for them. And yet Yemen is still standing against these atrocities, and I think, according to the international law, this is absolutely allowed. This is absolutely legal to stand against atrocities and against genocide by Israel against the Palestinians. To the contrary, for United States and United Kingdom, who should stand the same position, but they rather took the other way to support Israel and to attack Yemen at the same time. So I think that the Yemenis are the greatest in this thing, and they are continuing to do so, also forcing embargo on the Red Sea, and the Israeli now ports are not working in the Red Sea, it means that they are really having a very good stand against the genocide, and this is the right thing to do around in the international law.
Well, Isha, what is it about the U.S. that no matter if it is a Biden administration or a Trump administration, meaning Democrat or Republican, Washington's support for Israel never changes?
Well, Israel is the guarantor of American hegemony in the Middle East, so that is the first and most primary reason. And within the microcosm of the whole American system of government, we have to understand the power of the lobbyists like IPAC that spend billions of dollars on elections, and which makes sure that whoever gets elected has to have a very strong pro-Israel policy, because otherwise they will spend millions in order to make sure that they lose next time. So even a small amount of criticism causes people and elected officials their seats. So because of that, that's how they maintain the discipline and the support and the constant policy regardless the administration's in charge.
All right. My apologies to our viewers. We have a little feedback coming out of St. Petersburg. But back to Saad. I mean, do you think that just as the Israeli regime should be charged for its crimes against humanity and genocide, so should the United States and the UK and others who are totally propping up the Zionist regime and playing a major role in this genocide?
Yes, absolutely. I do believe in that. We need another courageous country like South Africa, who went to the Justice Court and filed a case against Israel committing genocide. And I think that we need such countries to go ahead and also to implicate United States and United Kingdom, because they were complicit in this war, and to have them, even trialed. And that's why I believe that both countries, and especially the United States, were threatening the criminal court and the justice court, and also threatening the judges and not recognizing their rulings, because they were afraid that they might be also implicated. So I think we need such a courageous country. We don't know, maybe it comes from Africa this time, maybe it comes from South America itself, but I don't think that any Arab country will do that. And in such case, really America had to face, these charges. So yes, I do believe that we need not only to charge Israel, but also all those who helped Israel and were partners in this war against Israel. And for that matter, it's not only United States, United Kingdom, Germany as well, France and Italy.
Well, staying with you, Saad, I mean, how likely is that to happen? And even with, you talked about South Africa, and we know that it brought the case to the International Court in dealing with the regime. But at the end of the day, people are still being killed in Gaza as we speak, 15 months later.
Yes, that's right. We know that. We need a real stand by the people and by the countries to stop this genocidal war immediately, as far as we can say. But the problem here is not, now in these cases, the results will come not on immediately, but it's on the middle level and on the long run more, if you like. I think that Israel will lose a lot later on. Also, all those countries who supported Israel also will lose on the longer run. This is not something that could be done immediately. We know that. We need another action to stop the genocidal war by pressurizing Israel through all countries who are against this genocidal war, by boycotting Israel, reducing the diplomatic relationships, preventing Israeli ships or any cargoes going through their ports, going to Israel. They can do many things, as a matter of fact, to stand against Israel and to make Israel know that we are taking action against them to stop the war. But on the level of the international law and the criminal court, I think this is on the long run, it will also give a good result, because people now do understand that these two countries, mainly United Kingdom and United States, plus the others, are really involved in this war.
Okay. Well, Aisha, do you think that once again the only option that proves viable in dealing with the Zionist regime and its supporters is resistance?
Absolutely. Armed resistance is one of the only ways that the Zionist entity has been able to be controlled. As we know from what happened in Lebanon in 2006, when Hezbollah was able to successfully oust them from occupying certain territories. So, but basically, it seems like what needs to happen is that there needs to be more armed resistance. But now it's going to be a little harder with the new situation in Syria, because as we know, the new leaders of Syria have had received support from the Zionist entity for the past 10 years. They've got medical support, weapons support. So having that corridor cut off will make the armed resistance much harder, but it won't make it impossible. And that is actually the only way, because the government has proven that their policy is going to be belligerent expansion in all ways. And they've only gotten more belligerent and more right-wing with their expansionist desires. So armed resistance seems to be the only way to control them in order to logistically cut off their ability to expand and enforce.
And on that note, I thank both of you for being with me on this spotlight. Saad Nimr, Professor of Political Science, Mirzat University, Ramallah; Isha Krishnaswamy, journalist and podcaster out of St. Petersburg. And thank you, viewers, for being with us on another Spotlight. I'm Marzieh Hashemi. Hope to see you right here next time. Goodbye.